What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and system. Once again, my name is Dwayne Pate. My co-host, brother EJ Stewart, and this podcast is brought to you, sponsored by J. Pope and Associates. If you have any counseling or therapeutic needs that you might feel like you need, feel free to reach out because that's a service that offers those therapeutic services to individuals who may be in need. Counseling, marriage counseling, whatever you need, we offer those services. We have a great guest for us today, brother Jarrell Mcrae. I've known him for a little bit of time, but I'm gonna let him introduce himself and just try to give us a little bit background of who he is, where he come from, if you want to do the high school thing, what school he went to, all that good stuff. So, brother Jarrell, I'm gonna turn it over to you right now.
Cool. Thank you, brother Peyton, brother Stewart as well. First time meeting you, but thank you so much for having me on this podcast. My name once again is Jarrell Mcrae. I am a native of Baltimore, Maryland. I went to do high school. Let's do high school. Emerson Westside High School, class of 2003. Totally excited about being a part of that cohort of individual students, because I think that we were definitely a rough crew, but in the end, I think that we were successful because we were a little hard-headed, and that level of perseverance is what kept us. From there, matriculated to Morgan State University, where I completed my bachelor's in science and psychology. What happened?
I think he went to Bowie or something like that. Somewhere on the, somewhere not Morgan. You know how those people.
The top ranked Delaware State University. But continue.
Oh, Delaware State. Okay, it's not the national treasure, but we understand.
Yeah, it's all right.
So, I went to Morgan State for my bachelor's in science and psychology. Got my master's degree from Morgan as well in social work. And I am in the final stages of getting my doctoral degree from Tulane University. And so, that's me academically. And currently, I'm the executive director of Nexus Woodburn Family Healing, formerly the Woodburn Center, where we provide residential services, diagnostic services, treatment foster care, as well as we have a school on site as well. We service about maybe almost 200 employees with community services through our treatment foster care program, and of course, ensuring that we continue the legacy of Woodburn. That's actually Woodburn has been standing as a in which what am I trying to say, Dwayne? We've been here in Baltimore since 1798, but we're just trying to continue that legacy here in East Baltimore, because once again, we need agencies that serve our Black and Brown population while also remaining a staple in this community to ensure that we provide employment opportunities for the community stakeholders. So my career has been child welfare. I've been in child welfare since college, really. 2004 is when I first entered into child welfare. I've had many roles: case management, support roles, and I entered into leadership in 2011 at Prince George's County Department of Social Services, and I've kind of been on that track ever since then. So that's me.
Got you. Well, despite having to go to Morgan, tell us about what it was like coming up in Edmonton, and I assume you lived on the west side as well, or
I did west side, born and raised.
Tell us what that was like, and coming up, and just your journey getting to where you were, and some of the stigmas or societal standards that you had to kind of overcome.
Sure. I grew up in a single parent home, raised by my mom. And at the time, my mom was definitely a hustler. She had 3-4 jobs as long as I've known her. But she definitely was an amazing provider, amazing nurturer, taught me a lot of lessons from both a female and male perspective. However, of course, well, in terms of my memory, the first place I remember us living was Poplar Grove. And she was living there for quite some time. And we witnessed a lot of things, the community changing in terms of substance abuse and just the, uh, I guess, disregard for life between, within our community. And so my mother thought, hey, I'll put you in private schools so that you can kind of, see a different side. And I will say that, because of that, I definitely saw a different side in a sense. It made me, it helped me kind of do that code switch thing, where, in school we conducted ourselves this way because it was predominantly African American, but we did, of course, have Caucasian peers, and so I learned that certain things that we did in our community didn't quite jive in the school realm, and so I was in private school actually up until about seventh grade. And then mama didn't have no more money to put me in private school. So I shifted over to Baltimore City Public Schools, and that was a culture shock because being a religiously based private school, we were taught things like do unto others as you would do unto others, or whatever, however that goes. Dwayne's the pastor, not me. So I'm yet a wretch undone. I went to my first public school, and my mom could ask me, "Why do you keep coming home with no pens and pencils?" I'm like, "Well, the Bible says you should be giving, unto others." And she said, "Boy, you don't stop giving my stuff out." you know. But it was an interesting time because having to deal with being an African American male in an environment where if you were intelligent, or you weren't quite in the groove of everybody else, you were kind of seen as an outsider. And so I didn't have a black male to kind of show me how I should conduct myself. And the black role models that I did have, like for example, my uncle was unfortunately in jail a lot. Thankfully now that's not his life anymore, but at the time of my development, that was his life. And my mother worked so much that a lot of times I was kind of just, there raising myself in a sense. But, she was an amazing mother, great provider. But once again, when I got home, for those hours that she was working that second job, I was, just kind of there raising myself. So I had to grow up kind of quick. I had to be autonomous, and I had to be resourceful. And I learned that at a very early age. And I think that has carried me quite far. One of the best examples, and I'll shut up because I'm talking too much now.
Oh, you're fine.
Uncle,
this is exactly what we need.
Okay, cool. My uncle told me, he was like, he said, life is a hustle. He said, if you can get that mentality down, you'll make it through anything. And I can remember the first time he told me that, and I can remember my teacher was going to call home and say, you doing this, you're doing that. We're going to let your mother know that. And so I was like, okay. So I came home. I'm like, I'm all anxious. I don't know what's going to happen. And he called my mother. You know how black mamas are. It's like, I'm working 3-4 jobs, take care of you behind you at school, acting like a fool. And I was sitting there and I said, oh no, what's she going to say? And I just, something came to my mind. And I went to that answering machine and realized that the answering machine has a tape on it. And my God, it blessed it with a delete button too. My God. And I deleted that message. And I deleted that thing so much. My teachers, I actually thought my mother was being neglectful. So when she came to the parent teachers thing, it was like, we've been calling your house for months and you have not responded. But it was that hustle mentality. My uncle said, if you hustle, you can make it through life. And I've carried that mentality as far as I possibly could to make sure that I never let the barriers of success break you down to the point where you think it's impossible. It's just figuring out how you're going to hustle your way through that.
Absolutely.
Not from a negative perspective, but work your way
Disclaimer.
through.
Disclaimer. Do not do what I do.
That's right.
But what kind of led you to a career path in like social work, human services? Like, Give us a little background on how I know you said your undergrad was in psychology, correct?
Right. Right.
So, like, what kind of sparked your interest of wanting to kind of go in this field and just kind of pursue the path that you chose?
Sure. First generation college student, had no
Mm,
clue what I was doing. All I knew was my family had a history of mental health concerns and that went untreated. And so we saw family members that had bad outcomes in terms of we know that if mental health goes untreated for quite some time, that there's actually kind of a point of no return in a sense. That person has gone so deep into their psychosis that they're unable to return to a normal homeostasis. And so we saw that in our family. And my commitment to my family, if I'm going to be the first one, let me fix something so we don't have to keep going through this. And so I only went into it with the mentality of maybe I can learn something that can help my family. I had no clue that I was crazy enough to stick in this thing long enough to actually, you know, um, you know, have a booming career in child welfare. I think it's booming, and then even aspire to complete a doctoral program. That was not the end goal. The end goal really for me was just to have some information where not only I could make a decent wage, but then I could also take back information to my family. So that's what kind of got me into psychology. Psychology is a more research-based profession, and so we were told that by our amazing faculty at Morgan State, who really ushered us into preparing us for grad school. And so I knew I didn't want to go. At least at that time, I didn't want to go be a researcher. And so I was trying to figure, well, how can I help people? Well, in the interim, I wound up getting a job at a facility that's closed down now called Good Shepherd, and that changed my life. It was like one of the best job experiences I had because I got to see kids in an arena where they had experienced trauma, and then the remnants of that trauma caused them to have all these behavioral concerns or other cognitive concerns. And I didn't know none of that. I didn't know what that meant. All I knew was that we were in the trenches. At least that's how I saw it, and supporting these young people through some of the toughest points of their life. And one day I was going to my shift, going to a unit, and this woman walked out the office, and I remember thinking to myself, man, that woman is bad. I mean, she runs the units, and she's working with the families, and anytime we have an incident on the unit, she's right there where her walk is. Like, she's just running the show. She's only 5'2", 5'2". I don't know how in the world she's 5'2", and she just running the heck out of this stuff. And I remember I looked at her name tag and it had her name and MSW behind it. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I gotta get that. I think that's how I get to the next step, right? Because I'm a first generation college student. No one knew how to advise me on career development, right? So I kind of was just shooting the dark in a sense. So yeah, one of my homegirls, I asked about it. She was in University of Maryland for social work. At the time, I was like, well, I'm fresh out of undergrad, and that GPA out of undergrad wasn't that great. So I don't think University of Maryland is quite it. So let me figure out something else. That's when I found that Morgan had just started their MSW program, and I applied and said, "Hey, once again, just shooting my shot and see where we land." And it wound up being successful for me.
That's awesome, man. I mean, just listening to your story is so I resonate with it so much, or it just feels like a lot like mine. And I was gonna ask, going back to the high school stigmas you might have faced as far as being the intelligent kid, but I wanted to take it a step further in the future, having the HBCU background
Mm.
and in the professional world, because a lot of our counterparts, or the stigma is, well, HBCUs don't prepare you for the professional world, which is one of the craziest things anyone could say. But talk about any professional um, stigmas, or glass ceilings, or anything you may have faced with having that background and being a black male in this profession where we're not the norm.
Right. I would say this may be hard to believe. I think Dr. Pate would probably would understand what I'm saying. I was smart, but I was the class clown. I think I graduated pretty much near the bottom of my high school class because I just played. I just and now that I think about it, I didn't think about it as in I wasn't going to be successful. In my mind, I knew I was going to graduate, but I didn't sweat it because you go to class, you play around. My biggest thing was just give me the home assignment, I'm going to figure it out. Well, I didn't know that the fact that I could figure it out was being intelligent. Like I didn't see it that way. I just knew that my freshman year, I came in real green. I was shooting for academic success, but none of most of my friends were. And I chose popularity over academia. And so, and to be honest with you, popularity was survival. If you didn't want to be the ostracized kid, having to fight every day or be picked on, which I experienced my first year of high school, I was just like, no, it got to be a better way. And by the time I figured that out, it was like, well, academia isn't the way. It's actually if I move towards popularity and having friends, and then I'll be good. And I'm glad I took that path because I learned a lot. I learned a lot about associations, friendships, about a lot about myself in those years. The times I fell on my face, and there was a lot of them in high school, are the foundation or is the foundation of how I progressed forward. So you imagine if I was a class clown and acting a fool in high school, I didn't quite really need that in college. I had already had my hood crew, if you want to call it that way, that I'm still actually really cool with. So it's like, college, I'm just going to hit these classes and do what I need to do. I transitioned from um, also a school where they knew I was smart. The conversations that they were having with me were, why do you keep acting a fool and you're intelligent? And I couldn't see what they were talking about. And so I had teachers that pulled me into WJZ oratory contest, but I said, all right, I'm gonna meet with you. We'll meet you at 4 o'clock. Everybody gone. It's me and you. We go. We'll do our thing. I was in the 2001, I think it was 2001, 2002 class for the Elijah Cummings Youth Program in Israel. So my summer after high school, I was in Israel for the bulk of the summer. But my friends at high school didn't know that. I kept that stuff a secret because I was afraid it was going to mess with my popularity. So being less concerned with popularity when I got to college, I just kind of, just pursued my perception of excellence, which was let's just get through this thing, because single mom, there's no money to put you through school. So I had 2 jobs in college. I was on scholarship because of the choir, and so it was I got to pay for school, but still go to school and act like I'm a normal student. But I'm not. I'm not the normal student. Um, but to the point of of stigma, I definitely can say that I experienced that more, I think, when I entered into seats of power than I did if I was like a regular, staff person, line staff person, as we say. When I was working at Good Shepherd and I was, one of the direct care staff individuals, no one challenged me about Morgan or Bowie or Howard or Towson. It was, your shift is 8 to 4. You gonna do some overtime today. Okay, you were the most valuable person on those teams. Um, and I'll never forget when I got into leadership and I was going through this process map, and I was saying, this is what happens here. Here's where I see the threats. I think we can do is assess this policy, change this structure. And the woman asked me, wow, what class did you graduate from Maryland? And I said, Maryland. And she said, yes, you went to school of social work at Maryland, right? And I said, no, ma'am, I went to Morgan State. The look on her face of shock was, I mean, to this day, I can still see her face because in her mind, it was, there's no way you could be this intelligent and have gone to Morgan. And it was an eye opener for me, because my first experience wasn't like that. I had people of all color honoring the fact that I was educated, but it was because we need you to do this work that maybe no one else really wants to do. But when I got to leadership, and the people who looked like me became more scarce, it was we will honor you because we believe you to have this checkbox. But I didn't. I had that Morgan degree, which I was very proud of, and I actually found that my Morgan degree made me more diverse. It made me better prepared to address the issues that we were discussing, because it wasn't this kind of box degree. We definitely approached social work in its entirety from a holistic view or world perspective. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I around that time when I was looking to get my MSW Morgan, I don't know if the program had started, but didn't have the spring courses, and I
mhm.
needed to get it done, and I wound up at Maryland. But I could tell you, it was a horrible experience.
Wow.
Um, I remember being in classes with one other black person, and that black person being a female and being the only black male at that time. A couple of us came later, but it was horrible, and I just went to get it done. But there was no networking, there was no resources. I was in class constantly, uh, in combat with
Yeah.
some upper class student from Boston, and you know it was horrible. So I mean, I definitely understand, even in the professional sense. After that, getting my degree from Maryland and being in a meeting with a youth and an IEP meeting, and the rest of the meeting coming down at us, and I'm like, I got my degree from the same place you did, so it didn't even matter, even in that sense, that I had it. So I
Yeah.
totally understand, and that's awesome that you were
That's
able to
crazy.
get
You
through it.
said that it was horrible. When I
Well,
was at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, when I first attempted my DSW, and that was a horrible experience. And it was my first time attending a PWI, right? Predominantly
white
white institution,
institution. Yeah.
right? And so I went in there thinking that this was going to be an amazing experience. And I mean, when you say combat, that's what class was every time I went to class. I had these individuals who telling me that I needed to stop talking about trauma, because there's no way that people in my community, my urban community, was experiencing trauma that much.
Mm. And these are the people that would one day be tasked to work with our people.
Yep.
That's the scariest part about it.
Making policies and legislation and all that good stuff, because that's what they go for. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mm.
One of the teachers told me, she said, yeah, I used to be a racist, but I'm no longer a racist. And she was the main teacher who gave me the blues. I mean, I later found out that she actually even recommended me not to be admitted. So it was definitely an experience that I would say, I've had negative experiences in my career. That was one that almost broke me,
Mm.
because it was just like their aim was to make you feel like you were an idiot, that you didn't deserve the letters, the license, or anything. So it definitely was, like you said, when you use the word combat, I've never used that word before. So that's a different level of awareness for me. But that's exactly how I felt. Like I was in combat every time I had class.
Yeah. Yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
It's rough out here. It's rough. It's definitely rough for just kind of being this and in the mental health arena, childcare services, and just trying to make sure you stand out and make sure not live up. You have your own expectations for yourself. But it's like double when you are black in this arena, because it's not too many of us. Most of the time we're going to be the only one at our agencies that or one of a few. So it's just a matter of us continue. I think the biggest thing we probably need to do is continue to develop with one another, and just kind of build partnerships and network, instead of trying to be out here on our own. And I think that's the key right there, so that we can kind of create a union or a dynamic that, when people are when African American men come into a space, it's like, okay, they know what they're talking about. But
Right.
we're a little ways from that. It's going to be a process, but that's life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just and that's that thing, that HBCU part of us, that excellence, that understanding that we can overcome. And like I always tell folks from the PWI scope, because I've had people say, they don't prepare you. I'm like, that's the most asinine thing you could say. We, if anything, we have the firsthand knowledge from someone that's like us, that has been in the professional space,
Mhm.
that can speak to the code switching, to the presentation, and what's expected in the glass ceiling. And you talking about that experience in Knoxville. I mean, I've been to that part of Tennessee, and I can only imagine, but wherever you go, because University of Maryland, I mean, it was, I mean, to this day, I get mail from them. I'm ripping it up immediately. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, it's just, I remember being in the community division of intern space. I can't think of what the acronym stands for, but basically, I remember this one young lady from Chicago, Caucasian. I mean, she openly admitted she had never been around this many black people before. She had never been, even though being from Chicago, they were in and out. She might have been from the suburbs, but they gave
Mhm.
this young lady an internship and later a career working with, young men, at risk young men. And I'm like, okay, so it's just, it's just that thing, man. And we do this, and I give Dwayne all the credit, because he keeps this thing going, and he does so much with it. And this, every time I come on here, is just empowering for me, because I don't even think we sit back and think about the stigmas, the
Yeah.
societal barriers that we crash through.
Yeah.
And you, my brother, have, again, I could relate so much to your story, and even where you're going now, and how you're doing now. So you are a survivor, and you are, a successful example of what we need in this world. So kudos to you, man.
I appreciate that, but same to you all. I mean, the idea is that, I mean, like Dwayne said, we don't connect enough. And I think that that's been one of the, if I were to challenge myself, it would to be to connect with more like-minded African American men, not only because of our ability to survive, but to help the next generation survive. I hear some of that commentary about fraternity. People say, "Oh, fraternity, you shouldn't do it." And I always think to myself, I sometimes, because I didn't have a father figure, I sometimes don't know where I would be if I didn't have a fraternity brother that instilled certain things in me. I mean, part of my success, I graduated out of Morgan in 2011, and I became a part of a fraternity in 2012. So part of my career success has been I've had brothers behind me that supported me, but
Mhm.
many of them aren't LCSWCs or LMSW. They don't have that human service background. So like if I can have this fraternal spirit amongst these individuals that I didn't know before, well, here's some people that are like-minded. So we could have an even more robust
Mhm.
kind of experience, but we don't think that way because it's so less of us, and we all kind of get these opportunities, and we kind of it's so easy to have the unpronounced or unannounced crab in a barrel mentality,
Mhm.
and we got to find a way to eradicate that because like I said, I serve predominantly African American men on my campus, and I'm always looking for strong African American men of all walks of life to be able to walk onto this campus, and whether you're a direct care staff person, a therapist, um, a teacher, that you're able to pour into these young people's lives because they don't see an example of what could be. All they know is what is or what was. And so that level of strength that we have in numbers, I've seen it do good work, but for whatever reason, professionally, sometimes we don't make those connections.
Yeah, and I think societally we've been suffering from that because one, our field is such a demanding field,
Mhm.
and two, as a whole community, black men, let alone, you were playing that class clown, that popular person, and means of defense, whereas education and success, I think for our generation, me going back to growing up and being in New York, but hearing everyone's story that I hear from here, we're hundreds of miles away, but we experience very similar things.
Mm-hmm.
And men societally, we haven't had from our fathers and uncles that thing being passed down to say, you can be in the books, you can do this, because they didn't have it. And I think we really are that first wave, that first generation of guys
Yeah.
at this rate that are really trying to break these things down. And we didn't even know what we doing. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right,
we
right,
went through this thing blind and we're figuring it out now. So it's like, we are really the last of the Mohicans, where we really were raised by them guys that told us sometimes negative things, sometimes positive things, but
right.
didn't have the wherewithal to tell us how to get through this. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just now getting to a place where we might have had to struggle to get, okay, we could breathe a little bit, we still need to breathe a little bit more, but now we're starting to understand, okay, now that we could breathe, well, let's see how they doing,
Right.
and it's tough, man. It really is.
I also, to chime in, I think we're also becoming more emotionally aware.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, I think for so long the society has. I mean, I think, and it goes all the way back to slavery, that we've been beaten to the point where we are supposed to hold our feelings in. So it's
Right.
almost like that's what we do. So now I think we're in a time where, of course, mental health is becoming more prevalent and more open to discuss, because people are like, all right, yes, I need help. All because we had to kind of get rid of that mentality that we're not in this thing alone. And I think that emotional intelligence, emotional awareness piece is pivotal, because
Yeah.
that is what is key to us getting to the levels that we imagine in our minds, the levels that we dream of. Things like when we were younger, when you would dream of being a doctor, a lawyer, like, but society will say, oh no, you ain't gonna be nothing, you're not gonna graduate, you'll have somebody put that negative seed in. But as long as you are emotionally aware, or you're teaching those children, or you're teaching those individuals that you come in contact to kind of be aware of their feelings and knowing how to process them, it makes a tremendous difference. And sometimes for me as an adult, just kind of learning how to be more emotionally aware. And I'm this old, and I'm like, man, if I had this information when I was like 18, some of the decisions I'd have made, you live and you learn. But it's
Right.
like, how much farther would I be if I had that kind of impact, or just kind of being emotionally aware? Like, it's okay for me to cry, it's okay to be express my feelings, and I'm still a man.
Mhm.
Ask for help.
It's
Yeah.
okay to ask for help, and
Mhm.
yes, you're still a man.
Yeah.
But
That's crazy you say that though. That is so crazy. I was just telling somebody the other day. I said I just started at this age, almost 40, to recognize my triggers, because
mhm,
I was telling them, I said usually I push it in the back of my mind and I just keep it going because we're taught, as a man, you're supposed to move forward. You're not supposed to allow these barriers to overwhelm you. You should never show a sign of weakness.
mhm,
And I get that all the time. My supervisor, she'll say, "You're going through this and you're going through that on the job, but you never ever show it." And I just kind of like, yeah, I don't. But mentally, I am always processing it. But it,
mhm,
it,
Mhm.
it wasn't until like maybe literally like in the last 60 days, I was like, I need to start recognizing my triggers.
mhm,
Like I was thinking about when I have a Caucasian person either on my level or above me say, "Hey, Jarrell, can I talk to you for a second?" it's not hugely important, but I need to have this conversation with you. And I was kind of I'm always triggered when that happens, but I never say anything because I
Mm-hmm.
go into it like I'm going to go into this conversation strong. We're going to figure out what's going on. And so I trace back in my mind, like, well, when did I first have a conversation with a Caucasian person where it just didn't go well? And I thought back, I think it was like 11th grade. And all my friends were in college bound, but you had to have a certain GPA to be in college bound.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but they were doing college trips. So I figured, you know what? I don't know nothing about college, but maybe I can have my mom pay for one of these trips and I could just go to kind of get the experience. Because
Mm-hmm.
other than that, I'm not gonna go because I don't have a GPA.
Right.
I played around, but I played around too much. So I chased the college band guy down for weeks. I mean, I'm talking every week, 2 times a week almost. I
Mm-hmm.
was in there for about 6 or 7 weeks. And I knew it was a problem when I went into the little office. There's a front desk person. And I said, is he in? And she lamented. And then she dropped her head and she was like, no, he's not in. Let me get a message from you. But it wasn't as if she was tired of me. It was like if she was tired of him.
Mhm.
And one day I don't know what I did differently. I maybe I went early or whatever, but some kind of way I caught him. And before I could even say his name, he said, I already know what you want. You're not going to make it to college. I've been trying not to be, trying to be nice, but I've got too much going on. You're not going to get through college. The best you'll ever do is probably just go to community college. Just go to community college, and that's the best you can do. He walked away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home to my mom. I told her what happened. And like any strong black woman, she looked at me and she said, so what you going to do? Like as if the ball's in your court. Are you gonna let what that man said direct your life? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I think that was the first time that me and my mom ever had like an adult conversation. It wasn't
Mhm.
a son to mother; it was adult to adult. And I mean that experience changed my life. I have no idea where that man is today, but he definitely didn't think. I'm sure if he saw me today, he'd be like, "Well, damn, I was wrong about that one." But he looked at me and kind of go back to what you were saying, EJ. He looked at me with his theoretical eyes,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
where the African American teachers that were there were looking beyond, and they saw a purpose that I couldn't perceive just yet. Yeah, that comes right on home for me. What you were saying, Dwayne, and what you
College
were saying.
bound. We need some answers, college bound.
They
It might be 15, 20 years old. We need some answers.
don't got that. They what Kanye said. You ain't got all the answers, Sway.
We need some answers, man. That's horrible. But again, man, this I'm telling you, this is exactly what it's all about. You
Mm-hmm.
survived, and it not only survived, you changed the narrative,
Mm-hmm.
So that is awesome.
So we want to kind of give you an opportunity to give some parting words to if anybody like inspiring to this human services field, any brothers out there that's just trying to figure some encouraging words. We like to part ways to give our guests to kind of opportunity to give the last word to kind of speak to those who are maybe listening.
Sure. If I could give any parting words, it would definitely be always moving authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have found that the minute I pivoted from what was naturally, a passion for me, or naturally the way that I moved or said something, that it never worked out. There's always room for improvement in terms of learning and growing, absolutely. But even learning and growing, it should be the authentic process. And so I have found that in the places where you least suspect to find that point of growth is actually where you find it. So it's in the denials. It's in the as Brother EJ said, the combat.
Mm-hmm.
It's in those moments in life where you face great adversity that you perceive that you may not even overcome. Um, but I found that when I'm authentic in that experience, where I'm saying I'm not strong enough, but I want to be strong enough. I'm not smart enough, but I want to be smart enough. Maybe I don't have enough courage for this one, but I want to have the courage. And I think it's that authentic approach and awareness and honesty with yourself that then allows you to get to that next place, which you get to it authentically. I think what you said earlier, Brother Pate, is the best advice. Everybody's success looks different, but it doesn't mean that you're not successful. And I think that I'm a hard-headed individual, and I have learned that I'm tired of bumping my head on the brick wall. So, but I don't condemn myself for the number of times that I've fallen. What I say to myself is that at least you have the courage to get back up, and have the courage to still move forward despite others' thoughts. So I would say always strive to move with authenticity and make sure that you stay and that authenticity keeps you in purpose driven momentum. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Definitely appreciate that. That parting words. I do have a question. I know you're in your doctor social work program, correct? Has there been any other books that you've been reading that kind of like that you would recommend for anybody out there? Anything in general?
I'm weird. So I put a disclaimer out there. I am a big fan of spirituality.
Okay.
And I feel like you can get the essence of a person in spoken word. So I'm a huge James Baldwin fan.
Okay.
I think that James Baldwin was living his life authentically in a time and period of space where that just wasn't the norm.
Right.
And he faced a lot of adversity as he did that. And so I love reading The Native Son. And I actually read The Native Son I have some books that I go to over and over and over again. That's one of them. Maya Angelou's I know why the cage bird sings. I don't know why I'm attracted to adversity, because it's just knowing that this is where they started, but look where they ended up. For some reason that speaks to me. I try to find nuggets of inspiration in that. And I'll name two other books, and you probably like, what? But it's really, it's some good stuff in there. Cicely Tyson's, I forget what her memoir is called, but amazing book. Jennifer Lewis, Mother of Black Hollywood. Now, if you want to laugh and get some spiritual awareness, Mother of Black Hollywood. I know it sounds crazy, but for me, I gotta be able to connect with you, and I feel like those books, like you said, EJ, I connect, and so I listen differently. It's as if I'm listening physically, but I'm listening spiritually as well. If that makes sense. So I know we all want to jump to. I'm reading Obama's book, and that's good. That's good.
I actually, that's what I think, and that's going to be probably one of the standard questions that I ask, because I'm on this journey that I'm starting now, trying to read some different books, like just trying to fill myself with knowledge. I feel like over this next year, I need to kind of immerse myself in the knowledge that's out there, so that I can be better prepared for the second half of my life, because it's going to be way better than the first half of my life. So, so that's why I asked for the book suggestions. It's really more personal for me, but it's going to help somebody else.
I hate to read.
I'm definitely, I have a lot of self-help, not a lot of self-help books, but a lot of spiritual based books about just being able to have better awareness. If I can say, like, what I really read outside of my those are fun books to me, books around awareness. My journey, Dwayne, is really just being aware and in every moment of my life, so that I don't miss a moment. One of my favorite lines, and I tell people around awareness, is going back to Color Purple, when Suge and Celie are in the meadow, and Suge says to Celie, "I think God gets upset when you walk past the color purple and you don't recognize, you don't acknowledge it." And for me, that level of awareness is like, in every moment of your life, are you truly aware and taking in the moment and being your authentic self in that moment? So I'm big on awareness. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's
Awesome.
that we're gonna close out on that. So once again, Jarrell, brother Jarrell, we thank you for joining us on this episode of Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and systems. Listen, make sure you follow us on all social media outlets. You can check out, all the information and content that we're putting out. We want to continue to make sure that we celebrate African American men and their version of success, because as we know, success is different for everyone, and everybody has a different story. But we all have the same goal, that we want to be a light. We want to impact. We want to influence a generation that's coming up underneath of us, so they can see that you can still do it, being emotionally healthy and still being, your authentic self. So once again, thank you for joining us today.